This is Audible.
For my father, who tried his very best not to be his worst. And for my mother, who made sure we never saw him at his worst. Part 1. Chapter 1. As I sit here with one foot on either side of the ledge, looking down from 12 stories above the streets of Boston, I can't help but think about suicide. Not my own. I like my life enough to want to see it through. I'm more focused on other people and how they ultimately come to the decision to just end their own lives. Do they ever regret it? In the moment after letting go and the second before they make impact, there has to be a little bit of remorse in that brief free fall. Do they look at the ground as it rushes toward them and think, well, crap, this was a bad idea? Somehow, I think not. I think about death a lot, particularly today, considering I just, 12 hours earlier, gave one of the most epic eulogies the people of Plethora, Maine have ever witnessed. Okay, maybe it wasn't the most epic. It very well could be considered the most disastrous. I guess that would depend on whether you were asking my mother or me. My mother, who probably won't speak to me for a solid year after today. Don't get me wrong, the eulogy I delivered wasn't profound enough to make history, like the one Brooke Shields delivered at Michael Jackson's funeral, or the one delivered by Steve Jobs' sister, or Pat Tillman's brother. But it was epic in its own way. I was nervous at first. It was the funeral of the prodigious Andrew Bloom, after all, adored mayor of my hometown of Plethora, Maine, owner of the most successful real estate agency within city limits, husband of the highly adored Jenny Bloom, the most revered teaching assistant in all of Plethora, and father of Lily Bloom, that strange girl with the erratic red hair who once fell in love with a homeless guy and brought great shame upon her entire family. That would be me. I'm Lily Bloom, and Andrew was my father. As soon as I finished delivering his eulogy today, I caught a flight straight back to Boston and hijacked the first roof I could find. Again, not because I'm suicidal. I have no plans to scale off this roof. I just really needed fresh air and silence, and damn it if I can't get that from my third-floor apartment with absolutely no rooftop access and a roommate who likes to hear herself sing. I didn't account for how cold it would be up here, though. It's not unbearable, but it's not comfortable either. At least I can see the stars. Dead fathers and exasperating roommates and questionable eulogies don't feel so awful when the night sky is clear enough to literally feel the grandeur of the universe. I love it when the sky makes me feel insignificant. I like tonight. Well, let me rephrase this so that it more appropriately reflects my feelings in past tense. I liked tonight. But unfortunately for me, the door was just shoved open so hard I expect the stairwell to spit a human out onto the rooftop. The door slams shut again and footsteps move swiftly across the deck. I don't even bother looking up. Whoever it is more than likely won't even notice me back here straddling the ledge to the left of the door. They came out here in such a hurry, it isn't my fault if they assume they're alone. I sigh quietly, close my eyes, and lean my head against the stucco wall behind me, cursing the universe for ripping this peaceful, introspective moment out from under me. The least the universe could do for me today is ensure that it's a woman and not a man. If I'm going to have company, I'd rather it be a female. I'm tough for my size and can probably hold my own in most cases, but I'm too comfortable right now to be on a rooftop alone with a strange man in the middle of the night. I might fear for my safety and feel the need to leave, and I really don't want to leave. As I said before, I'm comfortable. I finally allow my eyes to make the journey to the silhouette leaning over the edge. As luck would have it, he's definitely male. Even leaning over the rail, I can tell he's tall. Broad shoulders create a strong contrast to the fragile way he's holding his head in his hands. I can barely make out the heavy rise and fall of his back as he drags in deep breaths and forces them back out when he's done with them. He appears to be on the verge of a breakdown. I contemplate speaking up to let him know he has company or clearing my throat, but between thinking it and actually doing it, he spins around and kicks one of the patio chairs behind him. I flinch as it screeches across the deck, but being as though he isn't even aware he has an audience, the guy doesn't stop with just one kick. He kicks the chair repeatedly, over and over. Rather than give way beneath the blunt force of his foot, all the chair does is scoot farther and farther away from him. That chair must be made from marine-grade polymer. I once watched my father back over an outdoor patio table made of marine-grade polymer, and it practically laughed at him. Dented his bumper, but didn't even put a scratch on the table. This guy must realize he's no match for such a high-quality material, because he finally stops kicking the chair. He's now standing over it, his hands clenched in fists at his sides. To be honest, I'm a little envious. Here this guy is, taking his aggression out on patio furniture like a champ. He's obviously had a shitty day, as have I, but whereas I keep my aggression pent up until it manifests in the form of passive aggressiveness, this guy actually has an outlet. My outlet used to be gardening. Anytime I was stressed, I'd just go out to the backyard and pull every single weed I could find. But since the day I moved to Boston 2 years ago, I haven't had a backyard. Or a patio. I don't even have weeds. Maybe I need to invest in a marine-grade polymer patio chair. I stare at the guy a moment longer, wondering if he's ever going to move. He's just standing there, staring down at the chair. His hands aren't in fists anymore. They're resting on his hips, and I notice for the first time how his shirt doesn't fit him very well around his biceps. It fits him everywhere else, but his arms are huge. He begins fishing around in his pockets until he finds what he's looking for and, in what I'm sure is probably an effort to release even more of his aggression, he lights up a joint. I'm 23. I've been through college and have done this very same recreational drug a time or two. I'm not going to judge this guy for feeling the need to toke up in private. But that's the thing. He's not in private. He just doesn't know that yet. He takes in a long drag of his joint and starts to turn back toward the ledge. He notices me on the exhale. He stops walking the second our eyes meet. His expression holds no shock, nor does it hold amusement when he sees me. He's about 10 feet away, but there's enough light from the stars that I can see his eyes as they slowly drag over my body without revealing a single thought. This guy holds his cards well. His gaze is narrow and his mouth is drawn tight, like a male version of the Mona Lisa. "What's your name?" he asks. I feel his voice in my stomach. That's not good. Voices should stop at the ears, but sometimes, not very often at all, actually, a voice will penetrate past my ears and reverberate straight down through my body. He has one of those voices, deep, confident, and a little bit like butter. When I don't answer him, he brings the joint back to his mouth and takes another hit. "Lily," I finally say. I hate my voice. It sounds too weak to even reach his ears from here, much less reverberate inside his body. He lifts his chin a little and nudges his head toward me. "Will you please get down from there, Lily?" It isn't until he says this that I notice his posture. He's standing straight up now, rigid even, almost as if he's nervous I'm gonna fall. I'm not. This ledge is at least a foot wide, and I'm mostly on the roof side. I could easily catch myself before I fell, not to mention I've got the wind in my favor. I glance down at my legs and then back up at him. "No thanks, I'm quite comfortable where I am." He turns a little, like he can't look straight at me. "Please get down." It's more of a demand now, despite his use of the word please.
There are 7 empty chairs up here.
Almost 6, I correct, reminding him that he just tried to murder one of them. He doesn't find the humor in my response. When I fail to follow his orders, he takes a couple of steps closer.
You are a mere 3 inches from falling to your death. I've been around enough of that for one day.
He motions for me to get down again.
You're making me nervous, not to mention ruining my high.
I roll my eyes and swing my legs over. Heaven forbid a joint go to waste. I hop down and wipe my hands across my jeans. Better? I say as I walk toward him. He lets out a rush of air, as if seeing me on the ledge actually had him holding his breath. I pass him to head for the side of the roof with a better view, and as I do, I can't help but notice how unfortunately cute he is. No, cute is an insult. This guy is beautiful. Well manicured, smells like money, looks to be several years older than me. His eyes crinkle in the corners as they follow me, and his lips seem to frown, even when they aren't. When I reach the side of the building that overlooks the street, I lean forward and stare down at the cars below, trying not to appear impressed by him. I can tell by his haircut alone that he's the kind of man people are easily impressed by, and I refuse to feed into his ego. Not that he's done anything to make me think he even has one, but he is wearing a casual Burberry shirt, and I'm not sure I've ever been on the radar of someone who could casually afford one. I hear footsteps approaching from behind, and then he leans against the railing next to me. Out of the corner of my eye, I watch as he takes another hit of his joint. When he's finished, he offers it to me, but I wave it off. The last thing I need is to be under the influence around this guy. His voice is a drug in itself. I kind of want to hear it again, so I throw a question in his direction. So what did that chair do to make you so angry? He looks at me, like, really looks at me. His eyes meet mine, and he just stares, hard, like all my secrets are right there on my face. I've never seen eyes as dark as his. Maybe I have, but they seem darker when they're attached to such an intimidating presence. He doesn't answer my question, but my curiosity isn't easily put to rest. If he's going to force me down from a very peaceful, comfortable ledge, then I expect him to entertain me with answers to my nosy questions. Was it a woman? I inquire. Did she break your heart? He laughs a little with that question.
If only my issues were as trivial as matters of the heart.
He leans into the wall so that he can face me.
What floor do you live on?
He licks his fingers and pinches the end of his joint, then puts it back in his pocket.
I've never noticed you before.
That's because I don't live here. I point in the direction of my apartment. See that insurance building? He squints as he looks in the direction I'm pointing.
Yeah.
I live in the building next to it. It's too short to see from here. It's only 3 stories tall. He's facing me again, resting his elbow on the ledge.
If you live over there, why are you here? Your boyfriend live here or something?
His comment somehow makes me feel cheap. It was too easy, an amateurish pickup line. From the looks of this guy, I know he has better skills than that. It makes me think he saves the more difficult pickup lines for the women he deems worthy. You have a nice roof, I tell him. He lifts an eyebrow, waiting for more of an explanation. I wanted fresh air, somewhere to think. I pulled up Google Earth and found the closest apartment complex with a decent rooftop patio. He regards me with a smile.
At least you're economical,
he says.
That's a good quality to have.
At least? I nod, because I am economical, and it is a good quality to have.
Why did you need fresh air?
He asks. Because I buried my father today and gave an epically disastrous eulogy, and now I feel like I can't breathe. I face forward again and slowly exhale. Can we just not talk for a little while? He seems a bit relieved that I asked for silence. He leans over the ledge and lets an arm dangle as he stares down at the street. He stays like this for a while, and I stare at him the entire time. He probably knows I'm staring, but he doesn't seem to care.
A guy fell off this roof last month,
he says. I would be annoyed at his lack of respect for my request for silence, but I'm kind of intrigued. Was it an accident? He shrugs.
No one knows. It happened late in the evening. His wife said she was cooking dinner, and he told her he was coming up here to take some pictures of the sunset. He was a photographer. They think he was leaning over the ledge to get a shot of the skyline, and he slipped.
I look over the edge, wondering how someone could possibly put themselves in a situation where they could fall by accident. But then I remember I was just straddling the ledge on the other side of the roof a few minutes ago.
When my sister told me what happened, the only thing I could think about was whether or not he got the shot. I was hoping his camera didn't fall with him because that would have been a real waste, you know? To die because of your love of photography, but you didn't even get the final shot that cost you your life?
His thought makes me laugh, although I'm not sure I should have laughed at that. Do you always say exactly what's on your mind? He shrugs.
Not to most people.
This makes me smile. I like that he doesn't even know me, but for whatever reason, I'm not considered most people to him. He rests his back against the ledge and folds his arms over his chest.
Were you born here?
I shake my head. No, moved here from Maine after I graduated college. He scrunches up his nose and it's kind of hot. Watching this guy, dressed in his Burberry shirt with his $200 haircut, making silly faces.
So you're in Boston purgatory, huh? That's gotta suck.
What do you mean? I ask him. The corner of his mouth curls up.
The tourists treat you like a local. The locals treat you like a tourist.
I laugh. Wow. That's a very accurate description.
I've been here 2 months. I'm not even in purgatory yet, so you're doing better than I am.
What brought you to Boston?
My residency, and my sister lives here.
He taps his foot and says,
right beneath us, actually. Married a tech-savvy Bostonian, and they bought the entire top floor.
I look down. The entire top floor? He nods.
Lucky bastard works from home, doesn't even have to change out of his pajamas and makes 7 figures a year.
Lucky bastard indeed. What kind of residency? Are you a doctor? He nods.
Neurosurgeon. Less than a year left of my residency, and then it's official.
Stylish, well-spoken, and smart, and smokes pot. If this were an SAT question, I would ask which one didn't belong. Should doctors be smoking weed? He smirks.
Probably not, but if we didn't indulge on occasion, there would be a lot more of us taking the leap over these ledges. I can promise you that.
He's facing forward again with his chin resting on his arms. His eyes are closed now, like he's enjoying the wind against his face. He doesn't look as intimidating like this. You want to know something that only the locals know?
Of course,
he says, bringing his attention back to me. I point to the east. You see that building? The one with the green roof? He nods. There's a building behind it on Melcher. There's a house on top of the building, like a legit house built right on the rooftop. You can't see it from the street, and the building is so tall that not many people even know about it. He looks impressed.
Really?
I nod. I saw it when I was searching Google Earth, so I looked it up. Apparently a permit was granted for the construction in 1982. How cool would that be? To live in a house on top of a building?
You'd get the whole roof to yourself,
he says. I hadn't thought of that. If I owned it, I could plant gardens up there and have an outlet.
Who lives there?
He asks. No one really knows. It's one of the great mysteries of Boston. He laughs and then looks at me inquisitively.
What's another great mystery of Boston?
Your name. As soon as I say it, I slap my hand against my forehead. It sounded so much like a cheesy pickup line. The only thing I can do is laugh at myself. He smiles.
It's Ryle,
he says.
Ryle Kincaid.
I sigh, sinking into myself. That's a really great name.
Why do you sound sad about it?
Because I'd give anything for a great name.
You don't like the name Lily?
I tilt my head and cock an eyebrow. My last name is Bloom. He's quiet. I can feel him trying to hold back his pity. I know, it's awful. It's the name of a 2-year-old little girl, not a 23-year-old woman.
A 2-year-old girl will have the same name no matter how old she gets. Names aren't something we eventually grow out of. Lily Bloom.
Unfortunately for me, I say. But what makes it even worse is I absolutely love gardening. I love flowers, plants, growing things. It's my passion. It's always been my dream to open a florist shop, but I'm afraid if I did, people wouldn't think my desire was authentic. They would think I was trying to capitalize off my name and that being a florist isn't really my dream job.
Maybe so,
he says.
But what's that matter?
It doesn't, I suppose. I catch myself whispering, Lily blooms, quietly. I can see him smiling a little bit. It really is a great name for a florist, but I have a master's degree in business. I'd be downgrading, don't you think? I work for the biggest marketing firm in Boston.
Owning your own business isn't downgrading,
he says. I raise an eyebrow. Unless it flops. He nods in agreement.
Unless it flops,
he says.
So what's your middle name, Lily Bloom?
I groan, which makes him perk up.
You mean it gets worse?
I drop my head in my hands and nod.
Rose?
I shake my head. Worse.
Violet?
I wish. I cringe and then mutter, Blossom. There's a moment of silence.
Goddamn,
he says softly. Yeah, Blossom is my mother's maiden name, and my parents thought it was fate, that their last names were synonyms, so, of course, when they had me, a flower was their first choice.
Your parents must be real assholes.
One of them was. My father died this week. He glances at me.
Nice try. I'm not falling for that.
I'm serious. That's why I came up here tonight. I think I just needed a good cry. He stares at me suspiciously for a moment to make sure I'm not pulling his leg. He doesn't apologize for the blunder. Instead, his eyes grow a little more curious, like his intrigue is actually authentic.
Were you close?
That's a hard question. I rest my chin on my arms and look down at the street again. I don't know, I say with a shrug. As his daughter, I loved him. But as a human, I hated him. I can feel him watching me for a moment, and then he says,
I like that. Your honesty.
He likes my honesty. I think I might be blushing. We're both quiet again for a while, and then he says,
Do you ever wish people were more transparent?
How so? He picks at a piece of chipped stucco with his thumb until it breaks loose. He flicks it over the edge.
I feel like everyone fakes who they really are when deep down we're all equal amounts of screwed up. Some of us are just better at hiding it than others.
Either his high is setting in, or he's just very introspective. Either way, I'm okay with it. My favorite conversations are the ones with no real answers. I don't think being a little guarded is a negative thing, I say. Naked truths aren't always pretty. He stares at me for a moment.
Naked truths, he repeats. I like that.
He turns around and walks to the middle of the rooftop. He adjusts the back on one of the patio loungers behind me and lowers himself onto it. It's the kind you lie on, so he pulls his hands behind his head and looks up at the sky. I claim the one next to him and adjust it until I'm in the same position as him.
Tell me a naked truth, Lily.
Pertaining to what?
He shrugs. I don't know. Something you aren't proud of. Something that will make me feel a little less screwed up on the inside.
He's staring up at the sky, waiting on me to answer. My eyes follow the line of his jaw, the curve of his cheeks, the outline of his lips. His eyebrows are drawn together in contemplation. I don't understand why, but he seems to need conversation right now. I think about his question and try to find an honest answer. When I come up with one, I look away from him and back up to the sky. My father was abusive. Not to me, to my mother. He would get so angry when they fought that sometimes he would hit her. When that happened, he would spend the next week or two making up for it. He would do things like buy her flowers or take us out to a nice dinner. Sometimes he would buy me stuff because he knew I hated it when they fought. When I was a kid, I found myself looking forward to the nights they would fight because I knew if he hit her, the 2 weeks that followed would be great. I pause. I'm not sure I've ever admitted that to myself. Of course, if I could, I would have made it to where he never touched her. But the abuse was inevitable with our marriage, and it became our norm. When I got older, I realized that not doing something about it made me just as guilty. I spent most of my life hating him for being such a bad person, but I'm not so sure I'm much better. Maybe we're both bad people. Ryle looks over at me with a thoughtful expression.
Lily,
he says pointedly,
there is no such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things.
I open my mouth to respond, but his words strike me silent. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things. I guess that's true in a way. No one is exclusively bad, nor is anyone exclusively good. Some are just forced to work harder at suppressing the bad. Your turn, I tell him. Based on his reaction, I think he might not want to play his own game. He sighs heavily and runs a hand through his hair. He opens his mouth to speak, but then clamps it shut again. He thinks for a bit, and then finally speaks.
I watched a little boy die tonight.
His voice is despondent.
He was only 5 years old. He and his little brother found a gun in his parents' bedroom. The younger brother was holding it, and it went off by accident.
My stomach flips. I think this may be a little too much truth for me.
There was nothing that could be done by the time he made it to the operating table. Everyone around, nurses, other doctors, they all felt so sorry for the family, those poor parents, they said. But when I had to walk into the waiting room and tell those parents that their child didn't make it, I didn't feel an ounce of sorrow for them. I wanted them to suffer. I wanted them to feel the weight of their ignorance for keeping a loaded gun within access of 2 innocent children. I wanted them to know that not only did they just lose a child, they just ruined the entire life of the one who accidentally pulled the trigger. Jesus Christ. I wasn't prepared for something so heavy. I can't even conceive how a family moves past that. That poor boy's brother, I say. I can't imagine what that's going to do to him seeing something like that. Ryle flicks something off the knee of his jeans. It'll destroy him for life. That's what it'll do. I turn on my side to face him, lifting my head up onto my hand. Is it hard? Seeing things like that every day? He gives his head a slight shake. It should be a lot harder, but the more I'm around death, the more it just becomes a part of life. I'm not sure how I feel about that. He makes eye contact with me again. Give me another one, he says. I feel like mine was a little more twisted than yours. I disagree, but I tell him about the twisted thing I did a mere 12 hours ago. My mother asked me 2 days ago if I would deliver the eulogy at my father's funeral today. I told her I didn't feel comfortable, that I might be crying too hard to speak in front of a crowd. But that was a lie. I just didn't want to do it because I feel like eulogies should be delivered by those who respected the deceased. And I didn't much respect my father. Did you do it? I nod. Yeah, this morning. I sit up and pull my legs beneath me as I face him. You want to hear it? He smiles. Absolutely. I fold my hands in my lap and inhale a breath. I had no idea what to say. About an hour before the funeral, I told my mother I didn't want to do it. She said it was simple and that my father would have wanted me to do it. She said all I had to do was walk up to the podium and say 5 great things about my father. So, that's exactly what I did. Ryle lifts up onto his elbow, appearing even more interested. He can tell by the look on my face that it gets worse. Oh no, Lily. What did you do? Here, let me just reenact it for you. I stand up and walk around to the other side of my chair. I stand tall and act like I'm looking out over the same crowded room I was met with this morning. I clear my throat. Hello. My name is Lily Bloom, daughter of the late Andrew Bloom. Thank you all for joining us today as we mourn his loss. I wanted to take a moment to honor his life by sharing with you 5 great things about my father. The first thing, I look down at Ryle and shrug. That's it. He sits up. What do you mean? I take a seat on my lounge chair and lie back down. I stood up there for 2 solid minutes without saying another word. There wasn't one great thing I could say about that man, so I just stared silently at the crowd until my mother realized what I was doing and had my uncle remove me from the podium. Ryle tilts his head. Are you kidding me? You gave the anti-eulogy at your own father's funeral? I nod. I'm not proud of it, I don't think. I mean, if I had my way, he would have been a much better person and I would have stood up there and talked for an hour. Ryle lies back down. Wow, he says, shaking his head. You're kind of my hero. You just roasted a dead guy. That's tacky. Yeah, well, naked truth hurts. I laugh. Your turn. I can't top that, he says. I'm sure you can come close. I'm not sure I can. I roll my eyes. Yes, you can. Don't make me feel like the worst person out of the 2 of us. Tell me the most recent thought you've had that most people wouldn't say out loud. He pulls his hands up behind his head and looks me straight in the eye. I want to fuck you. My mouth falls open. Then I clamp it shut again. I think I might be speechless. He shoots me a look of innocence. You asked for the most recent thought, so I gave it to you. You're beautiful. I'm a guy. If you were into one-night stands, I would take you downstairs to my bedroom and I would fuck you.
I can't even look at him. His statement makes me feel a multitude of things all at once. Well, I'm not into one-night stands.
I figured as much. He says, your turn.
He's so nonchalant. He acts as if he didn't just stun me into silence. I need a minute to regroup after that one, I say with a laugh. I try to think of something with a little shock value, but I can't get over the fact that he just said that. Out loud. Maybe because he's a neurosurgeon and I never pictured someone so educated throwing around the word fuck so casually. I gather myself somewhat and then say, okay. Since we're on the subject, the first guy I ever had sex with was homeless. He perks up and faces me.
Oh, I'm gonna need more of this story.
I stretch my arm out and rest my head on it. I grew up in Maine. We lived in a fairly decent neighborhood, but the street behind our house wasn't in the best condition. Our backyard butted up to a condemned house adjacent to 2 abandoned lots. I became friends with a guy named Atlas, who stayed in the condemned house. No one knew he was living there other than me. I used to take him food and clothes and stuff. Until my father found out.
What did he do?
My jaw tightens. I don't know why I brought this up when I still force myself not to think about it on a daily basis. He beat him up. That's as naked as I want to get about that subject. Your turn. He regards me silently for a moment, as if he knows there's more to that story. But then he breaks eye contact.
The thought of marriage repulses me, he says. I'm almost 30 years old and I have no desire for a wife. I especially don't want children. The only thing I want out of life is success. Lots of it. But if I admit that out loud to anyone, it makes me sound arrogant.
Professional success or social status?
He says, both. Anyone can have children. Anyone can get married, but not everyone can be a neurosurgeon. I get a lot of pride out of that. And I don't just want to be a great neurosurgeon. I want to be the best in my field.
You're right. It does make you sound arrogant.
He smiles. My mother fears I'm wasting my life away because all I do is work.
You're a neurosurgeon and your mother is disappointed in you? I laugh. Good Lord, that's insane. Are parents ever really happy with their children? Will they ever be good enough? He shakes his head.
My children wouldn't be. Not many people have the drive I do, so I'd only be setting them up for failure. That's why I'll never have any.
I actually think that's respectable, Ryle. A lot of people refuse to admit they might be too selfish to have children.
He shakes his head. Oh, I'm way too selfish to have children. And I'm definitely way too selfish to be in a relationship.
So how do you avoid it? You just don't date? He cuts his eyes to me, and there's a slight grin affixed to his face.
When I have time, there are girls who satisfy those needs. I don't lack for anything in that department, if that's what you're asking. But love has never appealed to me. It's always been more of a burden than anything.
I wish I looked at love like that. It would make my life a hell of a lot easier. I envy you. I have this idea that there's a perfect man out there for me. I tend to become jaded easily because no one ever meets my standards. I feel like I'm on an infinite search for the Holy Grail.
You should try my method,
he says. Which is?
One-night stands.
He raises an eyebrow, like it's an invitation. I'm glad it's dark because my face is on fire. I could never sleep with someone if I didn't see it going anywhere. I say this out loud, but my words lack conviction when I say it to him. He drags in a long, slow breath and then rolls onto his back.
Not that kind of girl, huh?
He says this with a trace of disappointment in his voice. I match his disappointment. I'm not sure I'd even want to turn him down if he made a move, but I might have just thwarted that possibility.
If you wouldn't sleep with someone you just met.
His eyes meet mine again.
Exactly how far would you go?
I don't have an answer for that. I roll onto my back because the way he's looking at me makes me want to rethink one-night stands. I'm not necessarily against them, I suppose. I've just never been propositioned for one by someone I would consider it with. Until now, I think. Is he even propositioning me? I've always been terrible at flirting. He reaches out and grabs the edge of my lounge chair. In one swift movement, and with very minimal effort, he drags my chair closer to him until it bumps his. My whole body stiffens. He's so close now, I can feel the warmth of his breath cutting through the cold air. If I were to look at him, his face would be mere inches from mine. I refuse to look at him because he'd probably kiss me, and I know absolutely nothing about this guy other than a couple of naked truths. But that doesn't weigh on my conscience at all when he rests a heavy hand on my stomach.
How far would you go, Lily?
His voice is decadent, smooth. It travels straight to my toes. I don't know, I whisper. His fingers begin to crawl toward the hem of my shirt. He begins to slowly inch it upward until a slither of my stomach is showing. Oh, Jesus, I whisper, feeling the warmth from his hand as he slides it up my stomach. Against my better judgment, I face him again, and the look in his eyes completely captivates me. He looks hopeful and hungry and completely confident. He sinks his teeth into his bottom lip as his hand begins to tease its way up my shirt. I know he can feel my heart thrashing around in my chest. Hell, he can probably hear it.
Is this too far?
He asks. I don't know where this side of me is coming from, but I shake my head and say, not even close. With a grin, his fingers brush the underneath of my bra, lightly trickling over my skin that is now covered in chills. As soon as my eyelids fall shut, the piercing of a ring rips through the air. His hand stiffens when we both realize it's a phone. His phone. He drops his forehead to my shoulder.
Damn it.
I frown when his hand slips out from beneath my shirt. He fumbles in his pocket for his phone, standing up and walking several feet away from me to take the call.
Dr. Kincaid,
he says. He listens intently, his hand gripping the back of his neck.
What about Roberts? I'm not even supposed to be on call right now.
More silence is followed with,
yeah, give me 10 minutes. On my way.
He ends the call and slides his phone back in his pocket. When he turns to face me, he looks a little disappointed. He points to the door that leads to the stairwell.
I have to.
I nod. It's fine. He considers me for a moment, then holds up a finger.
Don't move,
he says, reaching for his phone again. He walks closer and holds it up as if he's about to snap a picture of me. I almost object, but I don't even know why. I'm fully clothed. It just doesn't feel that way for some reason. He snaps a picture of me lying in the lounge chair, my arms relaxed above my head. I have no idea what he plans to do with that picture, but I like that he took it. I like that he had the urge to remember what I look like, even though he knows he'll never see me again. He stares at the photo on his screen for a few seconds and smiles. I'm half tempted to take a picture of him in return, but I'm not sure I want a reminder of someone I'll never see again. The thought of that is a little depressing.
It was nice meeting you, Lily Bloom. I hope you defy the odds of most dreams and actually accomplish yours.
I smile, equally saddened and confused by this guy. I'm not sure that I've ever spent time with someone like him before, someone of a completely different lifestyle and tax bracket. I probably never will again. But I'm pleasantly surprised to see that we aren't all that different. Misconception confirmed. He looks down at his feet for a moment as he stands in somewhat of an unsure pose. It's as if he's suspended between the desire to say something else to me and the need to leave. He glances at me one last time, this time without so much of a poker face. I can see the disappointment in the set of his mouth before he turns and walks in the other direction. He opens the door, and I can hear his footsteps fade as he rushes down the stairwell. I'm alone on the rooftop once again, but to my surprise, I'm a little saddened by that now. Chapter 2. Lucy, the roommate who loves to hear herself sing, is rushing around the living room, gathering keys, shoes, a pair of sunglasses. I'm seated on the couch, opening up shoeboxes stuffed with some of my old things from when I lived at home. I grabbed them when I was at home for my father's funeral this week. "You work today?" Lucy asks. "Nope, I have bereavement leave until Monday." She stops in her tracks. "Monday?" She scoffs. "Lucky bitch." "Yes, Lucy, I'm so lucky my father died." I say it sarcastically, of course, but I cringe when I realize it's not actually very sarcastic. "You know what I mean," she mutters. She grabs her purse as she balances on one foot while sliding her shoe onto the other. "I'm not coming home tonight. Staying over at Alex's house." The door slams behind her. We have a lot in common on the surface, but beyond wearing the same size clothes, being the same age and both having 4-letter names that start with an L and end with a Y, there's not much else there that makes us more than just roommates. I'm okay with that, though. Other than the incessant singing, she's pretty tolerable. She's clean and she's gone a lot, two of the most important qualities in a roommate. I'm pulling the lid off the top of one of the shoeboxes when my cell phone rings. I reach across the couch and grab it. When I see that it's my mother, I press my face into the couch and fake cry into a throw pillow. I bring the phone to my ear. "Hello?" There's 3 seconds of silence and then, "Hello, Lily." I sigh and sit back up on the couch. "Hey, Mom." I'm really surprised she's speaking to me. It's only been 1 day since the funeral. That's 364 days sooner than I expected to hear from her. "How are you?" I ask. She sighs dramatically. "Fine," she says. "Your aunt and uncle went back to Nebraska this morning. It'll be my first night alone since—" "You'll be fine, Mom," I say, trying to sound confident. She's quiet for too long, and then she says, "Lily, I just want you to know that you shouldn't be embarrassed about what happened yesterday." I pause. I wasn't, not even the slightest bit. "Everyone freezes up once in a while. I shouldn't have put that kind of pressure on you, knowing how hard the day was on you already. I should have just had your uncle do it." I close my eyes. Here she goes again, covering up what she doesn't want to see, taking blame that isn't even hers to take. Of course, she convinced herself that I froze up yesterday, and that's why I refused to speak. Of course she did. I have half a mind to tell her it wasn't a mistake. I didn't freeze up. I just had nothing great to say about the unremarkable man she chose to be my father. But part of me does feel guilty for what I did, specifically because it's not something I should have done in the presence of my mother. So I just accept what she's doing and go along with it. "Thanks, Mom. Sorry I choked." "It's fine, Lily. I need to go. I have to run to the insurance office. We have a meeting about your father's policies. Call me tomorrow, okay?" "I will," I tell her. "Love you, Mom." I end the call and toss the phone across the couch. I open the shoebox on my lap and pull out the contents. On the very top is a small, wooden, hollow heart. I run my fingers over it and remember the night I was given this heart. As soon as the memory begins to sink in, I set it aside. Nostalgia is a funny thing. I move a few old letters and newspaper clippings aside. Beneath all of it, I find what I was hoping was inside these boxes, and also sort of hoping wasn't. My Ellen diaries. I run my hands over them. There are 3 of them in this box, but I'd say there are probably 8 or 9 total. I haven't read any of these since the last time I wrote in them. I refuse to admit that I kept a diary when I was younger because that was so cliché. Instead, I convinced myself that what I was doing was cool because it wasn't technically a diary. I addressed each of my entries to Ellen DeGeneres because I began watching her show the first day it aired in 2003 when I was just a little girl. I watched it every day after school and was convinced Ellen would love me if she got to know me. I wrote letters to her regularly until I turned 16, but I wrote them like one would write entries in a diary. Of course, I knew the last thing Ellen DeGeneres probably wanted was a random girl's journal entries. Luckily, I never actually sent any in, but I still liked addressing all the entries to her, so I continued to do that until I stopped writing in them altogether. I open another shoebox and find more of them. I sort through them until I grab the one from when I was 15 years old. I flip it open, searching for the day I met Atlas. There wasn't much that happened in my life worth writing about before he entered it, but somehow I filled 6 journals full before he ever came into the picture. I swore I'd never read these again, but with the passing of my father, I've been thinking about my childhood a lot. Maybe if I read through these journals, I'll somehow find a little strength for forgiveness. Although I fear I'm running the risk of building up even more resentment. I lie back on the couch, and I begin reading. Dear Ellen, before I tell you what happened today, I have a really good idea for a new segment on your show. It's called Ellen at Home. I think lots of people would like to see you outside of work. I always wonder what you're like at your home when it's just you and Portia and the cameras aren't around. Maybe the producers can give her a camera and sometimes she can just sneak up on you and film you doing normal things like watching TV or cooking or gardening. She could film you for a few seconds without you knowing, and then she would scream, "Ellen at home!" and scare you. It's only fair since you love pranks. Okay, now that I told you that, I keep meaning to and have been forgetting, I'll tell you about my day yesterday. It was interesting. Probably my most interesting day to write about yet, if you don't count the day Abigail Ivory slapped Mr. Carson for looking at her cleavage. You remember a while back when I told you about Mrs. Burleson who lives behind us? She died the night of that big snowstorm. My dad said she owed so much in taxes that her daughter wasn't able to take ownership of the house. Which is fine by her, I'm sure, because the house was starting to fall apart anyway. It probably would have been more of a burden than anything. The house has been empty since Mrs. Burleson died, which has been about 2 years. I know it's been empty because my bedroom window looks out over the backyard, and there hasn't been a single soul that goes in or out of that house since I can remember. Until last night. I was in bed shuffling cards. I know that sounds weird, but it's just something I do. I don't even know how to play cards. But when my parents get into fights, shuffling cards just calms me down sometimes and gives me something to focus on. Anyway, it was dark outside, so I noticed the light right away. It wasn't bright, but it was coming from that old house. It looked more like candlelight than anything, so I went to the back porch and found Dad's binoculars. I tried to see what was going on over there, but I couldn't see anything. It was way too dark. Then, after a little while, the light went out. This morning, when I was getting ready for school, I saw something moving behind that house. I crouched down at my bedroom window and saw someone sneaking out the back door. It was a guy, and he had a backpack. He looked around like he was making sure no one saw him, and then he walked between our house and the neighbor's house and went and stood at the bus stop. I'd never seen him before. It was the first time he rode my bus. He sat in the back, and I sat in the middle, so I didn't talk to him. But when he got off the bus at school, I saw him walk into the school, so he must go there. I have no idea why he was sleeping in that house. There's probably no electricity or running water. I thought maybe he did it as a dare, but today he got off the bus at the same stop as me. He walked down the street like he was going somewhere else, but I ran straight to my room and watched out the window. Sure enough, a few minutes later, I saw him sneaking back inside that empty house. I don't know if I should say something to my mother. I hate to be nosy because it's none of my business. But if that guy doesn't have anywhere to go, I feel like my mother would know how to help him since she works at a school. I don't know. I might wait a couple days before I say something and see if he goes back home. He might just need a break from his parents. Same as I wish I could have sometimes. That's all. I'll let you know what happens tomorrow. Lily. Dear Ellen, I fast forward through all your dancing when I watch your show. I used to watch the beginning when you dance through the audience, but I get a little bored with it now and would rather just hear you talk. I hope that doesn't make you mad. Okay, so I figured out who the guy is, and yes, he's still going over there. It's been 2 days now, and I still haven't told anyone. His name is Atlas Corrigan, and he's a senior, but that's all I know. I asked Katie who he was when she sat next to me on the bus. She rolled her eyes and told me his name, but then she said, I don't know anything else about him, but he smells. She scrunched up her nose like it grossed her out. I wanted to yell at her and tell her he can't help it, that he doesn't have any running water. But instead, I just looked back at him. I might have stared a little too much because he caught me looking at him. When I got home, I went to the backyard to do some gardening. My radishes were ready to be pulled, so I was out there pulling them. The radishes are the only thing left in my garden. It's starting to get cold, so there's not much else I can plant right now. I probably could have waited a few more days to pull them, but I was also outside because I was being nosy. I noticed as I was pulling them that some were missing. It looked like they had just been dug up. I know I didn't pull them, and my parents never mess with my garden. That's when I thought about Atlas and how it was more than likely him. I hadn't thought about how, if he doesn't have access to a shower, he probably doesn't have food either. I went inside my house and made a couple of sandwiches. I grabbed 2 sodas out of the fridge and a bag of chips. I put them in a lunch bag and I ran it over to the abandoned house and set it on the back porch by the door. I wasn't sure if he saw me, so I knocked real hard and then ran back to my house and went straight to my room. By the time I got to the window to see if he was going to come outside, the bag was already gone. That's when I knew he'd been watching me. I'm kind of nervous now that he knows I know he's staying there. I don't know what I'll say to him if he tries to talk to me tomorrow. Lily. Dear Ellen, I saw your interview with the presidential candidate Barack Obama today. Does that make you nervous, interviewing people who could potentially run the country? I don't know a lot about politics, but I don't think I could be funny under that kind of pressure. Man, so much has happened to both of us. You just interviewed someone who might be our next president, and I'm feeding a homeless boy. This morning, when I got to the bus stop, Atlas was already there. It was just the 2 of us at first, and I'm not gonna lie, it was awkward. I could see the bus coming around the corner, and I was wishing it would drive a little faster. Right when it pulled up, he took a step closer to me, and without looking up, he said, "Thank you." The doors opened on the bus, and he let me walk on first. I didn't say, "You're welcome," because I was kind of shocked by my reaction. His voice gave me chills, Ellen. Has a boy's voice ever done that to you? Oh, wait, sorry. Has a girl's voice ever done that to you? He didn't sit by me or anything on the way there, but on the way back from school, he was the last one getting on. There weren't any empty seats, but I could tell by the way he scanned all the people on the bus that he wasn't looking for an empty seat. He was looking for me. When his eyes met mine, I looked down at my lap real quick. I hate that I'm not very confident around guys. Maybe that's something I'll grow into when I finally turn 16. He sat down next to me and dropped his backpack between his legs. That's when I noticed what Katie was talking about. He did kind of smell, but I didn't judge him for that. He didn't say anything at first, but he was fidgeting with a hole in his jeans. It wasn't the kind of hole that was there to make jeans look stylish. I could tell it was there because it was a genuine hole, due to his pants being old. They actually looked a little too small for him because his ankles were showing. But he was skinny enough that they fit him just fine everywhere else. "Did you tell anyone?" he asked me. I looked at him when he spoke, and he was looking right back at me like he was worried. It was the first time I had actually gotten a good look at him. His hair was dark brown, but I thought maybe if he washed it, it wouldn't be as dark as it looked right then. His eyes were bright, unlike the rest of him. Real blue eyes, like the kind you see on a Siberian husky. I shouldn't compare his eyes to a dog, but that's the first thing I thought when I saw them. I shook my head and looked back out the window. I thought he might get up and find another seat at that point since I said I didn't tell anyone, but he didn't. The bus made a few stops, and the fact that he was still sitting by me gave me a little courage, so I made my voice a whisper. "Why don't you live at home with your parents?" He stared at me for a few seconds, like he was trying to decide if he wanted to trust me or not. Then he said, "Because they don't want me to." That's when he got up. I thought I'd made him mad, but then I realized he got up because we were at our stop. I grabbed my stuff and followed him off the bus. He didn't try to hide where he was heading today like he usually does. Normally, he walks down the street and goes around the block so I don't see him cut through my backyard. But today, he started to walk toward my yard with me. When we got to where I would normally turn to go inside and he would keep walking, we both stopped. He kicked at the dirt with his foot and looked behind me at my house. "What time do your parents get home?" "Around 5, I said. It was 3:45. He nodded and looked like he was about to say something else, but he didn't. He just nodded again and started walking toward that house with no food or electricity or water. Now, Ellen, I know what I did next was stupid, so you don't have to tell me. I called out his name, and when he stopped and turned around, I said, 'If you hurry, you can take a shower before they get home.' My heart was beating so fast because I knew how much trouble I could get into if my parents came home and found a homeless guy in our shower. I'd probably very well die. But I couldn't just watch him walk back to his house without offering him something. He looked down at the ground again, and I felt his embarrassment in my own stomach. He didn't even nod. He just followed me inside my house and never said a word. The whole time he was in the shower, I was panicking. I kept looking out the window and checking for either of my parents' cars, even though I knew it would be a good hour before they got home. I was nervous one of the neighbors might have seen him come inside, but they didn't really know me well enough to think having a visitor would be abnormal. I had given Atlas a change of clothes and knew he not only needed to be out of the house when my parents got home, but he needed to be far away from our house. I'm sure my father would recognize his own clothes on some random teenager in the neighborhood. In between looking out the window and checking the clock, I was filling up one of my old backpacks with stuff. Food that didn't need refrigerating, a couple of my father's t-shirts, a pair of jeans that were probably going to be 2 sizes too big for him, and a change of socks. I was zipping up the backpack when he emerged from the hallway. I was right. Even wet, I could tell his hair was lighter than it looked earlier. It made his eyes look even bluer. He must have shaved while he was in there because he looked younger than he did before he got in the shower. I swallowed and looked back down at the backpack because I was shocked at how different he looked. I was scared he might see my thoughts written across my face. I looked out the window one more time and handed him the backpack. "You might want to go out the back door so no one sees you." He took the backpack from me and stared at my face for a minute. "What's your name?" he said as he slung the pack over his shoulder. "Lily." He smiled. It was the first time he'd smiled at me, and I had an awful, shallow thought in that moment. I wondered how someone with such a great smile could have such shitty parents. I immediately hated myself for thinking it, because of course parents should love their kids no matter how cute or ugly or skinny or fat or smart or stupid they are. But sometimes you can't control where your mind goes. You just have to train it not to go there anymore. He held out his hand and said, "I'm Atlas." "I know," I said, without shaking his hand. I don't know why I didn't shake his hand. It wasn't because I was scared to touch him. I mean, I was scared to touch him, but not because I thought I was better than him. He just made me so nervous. He put his hand down and nodded once, then said, "I guess I better go." I stepped aside so he could walk around me. He pointed past the kitchen, silently asking if that was the way to the back door. I nodded and walked behind him as he made his way down the hall. When he reached the back door, I saw him pause for a second when he saw my bedroom. I was suddenly embarrassed that he was seeing my bedroom. No one ever sees my bedroom, so I've never felt the need to give it a more mature look. I still have the same pink bedspread and curtains I've had since I was 12. For the first time ever, I felt like ripping down my poster of Adam Brody. Atlas didn't seem to care how my room was decorated. He looked straight at my window, the one that looks out over the backyard, then he glanced back at me. Right before he walked out the back door, he said, "Thank you for not being disparaging, Lily." And then he was gone. Of course, I've heard the term disparaging before, but it was weird hearing a teenage guy use it. What's even weirder is how everything about Atlas seems so contradictory. How does a guy who is obviously humble, well-mannered, and uses words like disparaging end up homeless? How does any teenager end up homeless? I need to find out, Ellen. I'm gonna find out what happened to him. You just wait and see. Lily. I'm about to open another entry when my phone rings. I crawl across the couch for it, and I'm not the least bit surprised to see it's my mother again. Now that my father has passed and she's alone, she'll probably call me twice as much as she did before. "Hello?" "What do you think about my moving to Boston?" she blurts out. I grab the throw pillow next to me and shove my face into it, muffling a scream. Wow, I say. "Really?" She's quiet, and then, "It was just a thought. We can discuss it tomorrow. I'm almost to my meeting." "Okay, bye." And just like that, I want to move out of Massachusetts. She can't move here. She doesn't know anyone here. She'd expect me to entertain her every day. I love my mother, don't get me wrong, but I moved to Boston to be on my own, and having her in the same city would make me feel less independent. My father was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago while I was still in college. If Ryle Kincaid were here right now, I'd tell him the naked truth that I was a little bit relieved when my father became too ill to physically hurt my mother. It completely changed the dynamic of the relationship, and I no longer felt obligated to stay in Plethora to make sure she was okay. Now that my father is gone, and I never have to worry about my mother again, I was looking forward to spreading my wings, so to speak. But now she's moving to Boston. It feels like my wings were just clipped. Where is a marine-grade polymer chair when I need one? I'm seriously stressing out, and I have no idea what I'd do if my mother moves to Boston. I don't have a garden, or a yard, or a patio, or weeds. I have to find another outlet. I decide to clean. I place all my old shoe boxes full of journals and notes in my bedroom closet. Then I organize my entire closet, my jewelry, my shoes, my clothes. She cannot move to Boston. Chapter 3. 6 months later. "Oh." That's all she says. My mother turns and assesses the building, running a finger over the windowsill next to her. She picks up a layer of dust and wipes it between her fingers. It needs a lot of work, I know," I interrupt. I point at the windows behind her. "But look at the storefront. It has potential." She scrolls over the windows, nodding. There's this sound she makes in the back of her throat sometimes where she agrees with a little hum, but her lips remain tight. It means she doesn't actually agree. And she makes that sound. Twice. I drop my arms in defeat. You think this was stupid? She gives her head a slight shake. That all depends on how it turns out, Lily, she says. The building used to house a restaurant, and it's still full of old tables and chairs. My mother walks over to a nearby table and pulls out one of the chairs, taking a seat. If things work out, and your floral shop is successful, then people will say it was a brave, bold, smart business decision. But if it fails, and you lose your entire inheritance, then people will say it was a stupid business decision. She shrugs. That's just how it works. You majored in business, you know that. She glances around the room slowly, as if she's seeing it the way it will look a month from now. Just make sure it's brave and bold, Lily. I smile. I can accept that. I can't believe I bought it without asking you first, I say, taking a seat at the table. You're an adult, it's your right, she says, but I can hear a trace of disappointment. I think she feels even lonelier now that I need her less and less. It's been 6 months since my father died, and even though he wasn't good company, it has to be weird for her, being alone. She got a job at one of the elementary schools, so she did end up moving here. She chose a small suburb on the outskirts of Boston. She bought a cute 2-bedroom house on a cul-de-sac with a huge backyard. I dream of planting a garden there, but that would require daily care. My limit is once-a-week visits, sometimes twice. What are you going to do with all this junk? She asks. She's right. There's so much junk. It'll take forever to clear this place out. I have no idea. I guess I'll be busting my ass for a while before I can even think about decorating. When's your last day at the marketing firm? I smile. Yesterday. She releases a sigh and then shakes her head. Oh, Lily, I certainly hope this works out in your favor. We both begin to stand when the front door opens. There are shelves in the way of the door, so I careen my head around them and see a woman walk in. Her eyes briefly scan the room until she sees me. Hi, she says with a wave. She's cute. She's dressed well, but she's wearing white capris. A disaster waiting to happen in this dust bowl. Can I help you? She tucks her purse beneath her arm and walks toward me, holding out her hand. I'm Elisa, she says. I shake her hand. Lily. She tosses a thumb over her shoulder. There's a help wanted sign out front. I look over her shoulder and raise an eyebrow. There is? I didn't put up a help wanted sign. She nods and then shrugs. It looks old, though, she says. It's probably been there a while. I was just out for a walk and saw the sign. Was curious, is all. I like her almost immediately. Her voice is pleasant and her smile seems genuine. My mother's hand falls down on my shoulder and she leans in and kisses me on the cheek. I have to go, she says. Open house tonight. I tell her goodbye and watch her walk outside, then turn my attention back to Elisa. I'm not really hiring yet, I say. I wave my hand around the room. I'm opening up a floral shop, but it'll be a couple of months at least. I should know better than to hold preconceived judgments, but she doesn't look like she'd be satisfied with a minimum wage job. Her purse probably cost more than this building. Her eyes light up. Really? I love flowers. She spins around in a circle and says, This place has a ton of potential. What color are you painting it? I cross my arm over my chest and grab my elbow. Rocking back on my heels, I say, I'm not sure. I just got the keys to the building an hour ago, so I haven't really come up with a design plan yet. Lily, right? I nod. I'm not going to pretend I have a degree in design, but it's my absolute favorite thing. If you need any help, I do it for free. I tilt my head. You'd work for free? She nods. I don't really need a job. I just saw the sign and thought, what the heck? But I do get bored sometimes. I'd be happy to help you with whatever you need, cleaning, decorating, picking out paint colors. I'm a Pinterest whore. Something behind me catches her eye and she points. I could take that broken door and make it magnificent. All this stuff, really. There's a use for almost everything, you know. I look around at the room, knowing full well I'm not going to be able to tackle this by myself. I probably can't even lift half this stuff alone. I'll eventually have to hire someone anyway. I'm not going to let you work for free, but I could do $10 an hour if you're really serious. She starts clapping, and if she weren't in heels, she might have jumped up and down. When can I start? I glance down at her white capris. Will tomorrow work? You'll probably want to show up in disposable clothes. She waves me off and drops her Hermes bag on a dusty table next to her. Nonsense, she says. My husband is watching the Bruins play at a bar down the street. If it's okay, I'll just hang with you and get started right now. 2 hours later, I'm convinced I've met my new best friend. And she really is a Pinterest whore. We write keep and toss on sticky notes and slap them on everything in the room. She's a fellow believer in upcycling, so we come up with ideas for at least 75% of the stuff left in the building. The rest, she says, her husband can throw out when he has free time. Once we know what we're going to do with all the stuff, I grab a notebook and a pen and we sit at one of the tables to write down design ideas. Okay, she says, leaning back in her chair. I want to laugh because her white capris are covered in dirt now, but she doesn't seem to care. Do you have a goal for this place? She asks, glancing around. I have one, I say. Succeed. She laughs. I have no doubt you'll succeed, but you do need a vision. I think about what my mother said. Just make sure it's brave and bold, Lily. I smile and sit up straighter in my chair. Brave and bold, I say. I want this place to be different. I want to take risks. She narrows her eyes as she chews on the tip of the pen. But you're just selling flowers, she says. How can you be brave and bold with flowers? I look around the room and try to envision what I'm thinking. I'm not even sure what I'm thinking. I'm just getting itchy and restless, like I'm on the verge of a brilliant idea. What are some words that come to mind when you think of flowers? I ask her. She shrugs. I don't know. They're sweet, I guess. They're alive, so they make me think of life, and maybe the color pink and spring. Sweet, life, pink, spring, I repeat. And then, Elisa, you're brilliant. I stand up and begin pacing the floor. We'll take everything everyone loves about flowers, and we'll do the complete opposite. She makes a face to let me know she isn't following. Okay, I say. What if, instead of showcasing the sweet side of flowers, we showcased the villainous side? Instead of pink accents, we use darker colors, like a deep purple or even black. And instead of just spring and life, we also celebrate winter and death. Elisa's eyes are wide. But what if someone wants pink flowers, though? Well, we'll still give them what they want, of course, but we'll also give them what they don't know they want. She scratches her cheek. So, you're thinking black flowers? She looks concerned, and I don't blame her. She's only seeing the darkest side of my vision. I take a seat at the table again and try to get her on board. Someone once told me that there is no such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things. That stuck with me because it's so true. We've all got a little bit of good and evil in us. I want to make that our theme. Instead of painting the walls a putrid sweet color, we paint them dark purple with black accents. And instead of only putting out the usual pastel displays of flowers and boring crystal vases that make people think of life, we go edgy, brave and bold. We put out displays of darker flowers wrapped in things like leather or silver chains. And rather than put them in crystal vases, we'll stick them in black onyx or, I don't know, purple velvet vases lined with silver studs. The ideas are endless. I stand up again. There are floral shops on every corner for people who love flowers. But what floral shop caters to all the people who hate flowers? Elisa shakes her head. None of them, she whispers. Exactly. None of them. We stare at each other for a moment, and then I can't take it another second. I'm bursting with excitement, and I just start laughing like a giddy child. Elisa starts laughing too, and she jumps up and hugs me. Lily, it's so twisted. It's brilliant. I know. I'm full of renewed energy. I need a desk so I can sit down and make a business plan, but my future office is full of old vegetable crates. She walks toward the back of the store. Well, let's get them out of there and go buy you a desk. We squeeze into the office and begin moving crates out one by one and into a back room. I stand on the chair to make the piles taller so we'll have more room to move around. These are perfect for the window displays I have in mind. She hands me 2 more crates and walks away. And as I'm reaching on my tiptoes to stack them at the very top, the pile begins to tumble. I try to find something to grab hold of for balance, but the crates knock me off the chair. When I land on the floor, I can feel my foot bend in the wrong direction. It's followed by a rush of pain straight up my leg and down to my toes. Elisa comes rushing back into the room and has to move 2 of the crates from on top of me. Lily, she says, oh my God, are you okay? I pull myself up to a sitting position, but don't even try to put weight on my ankle. I shake my head. My ankle. She immediately removes my shoe and then pulls her phone out of her pocket. She begins dialing a number and then looks up at me. I know this is a stupid question, but do you happen to have a refrigerator here with ice in it? I shake my head. I figured, she says. She puts the phone on speaker and sets it on the floor as she begins to roll up my pant leg. I wince, but not so much from the pain. I just can't believe I did something so stupid. If I broke it, I'm screwed. I just spent my entire inheritance on a building that I won't even be able to renovate for months. Hey, Issa, a voice croons through her phone. Where are you at? The game's over. Elisa picks up her phone and brings it closer to her mouth. At work, listen, The guy cuts her off and says, At work? Babe, you don't even have a job. Elisa shakes her head and says, Marshall, listen, it's an emergency. I think my boss broke her ankle. I need you to bring some ice to... He cuts her off with a laugh. Your boss? Babe, you don't even have a job. He repeats. Elisa rolls her eyes. Marshall, are you drunk? It's onesie day. He slurs into the phone. You knew that when you dropped us off, Issa. Free beer until... She groans. Put my brother on the phone. Fine. Marshall mumbles. There's a rustling sound that comes from the phone and then... Yeah? Elisa spits out our location into the phone. Get here right now, please, and bring a bag of ice. Yes, ma'am, he says. The brother sounds like he may be a little drunk, too. There's laughter, and then one of the guys says, She's in a bad mood. And then the line goes dead. Elisa puts her phone back in her pocket. I'll go wait outside for them. They're just down the street. Will you be okay here? I nod and reach for the chair. Maybe I should just try to walk on it. Elisa pushes my shoulders back until I'm leaning against the wall again. No, don't move. Wait until they get here, okay? I have no idea what 2 drunken guys are going to be able to do for me, but I nod. My new employee feels more like my boss right now, and I'm kind of scared of her at the moment. I wait in the back for about 10 minutes when I finally hear the front door to the building open. What in the world? A man's voice says.
Why are you all alone in this creepy building?
I hear Elisa say, "She's back here." She walks in, followed by a guy wearing a onesie. He's tall, a little bit on the thin side, but boyishly handsome with big, honest eyes and a head full of dark, messy, way past due for a haircut hair. He's holding a bag of ice. Did I mention he was wearing a onesie? I'm talking a legit, full-grown man in a SpongeBob onesie. "This is your husband?" I ask her, cocking an eyebrow. Elisa rolls her eyes. "Unfortunately," she says, glancing back at him. Another guy, also in a onesie, walks in behind them, but my attention is on Elisa as she explains why they're wearing pajamas on a random Wednesday afternoon. "There's a bar down the street that gives out free beer to anyone who shows up in a onesie during a Bruins game." She makes her way over to me and motions for the guys to follow her. "She fell off the chair and hurt her ankle," she says to the other guy. He steps around Marshall, and the first thing I notice are his arms. Holy shit. I know those arms. Those are the arms of a neurosurgeon. Elisa is his sister? The sister that owns the entire top floor, with a husband who works in pajamas and brings in 7 figures a year? As soon as my eyes lock with Ryle's, his whole face morphs into a smile. I haven't seen him in, God, how long ago was that? 6 months? I can't say I haven't thought about him during the past 6 months because I've thought about him quite a few times, but I never actually thought I'd see him again. "Ryle, this is Lily. Lily, my brother Ryle," she says, motioning toward him. "And that's my husband, Marshall." Ryle walks over to me and kneels down.
Lily,
he says, regarding me with a smile.
"Nice to meet you."
It's obvious he remembers me. I can see it in his knowing smile. But like me, he's pretending this is the first time we've met. I'm not sure I'm in the mood to explain how we already know each other. Ryle touches my ankle and inspects it.
"Can you move it?"
I try to move it, but a sharp pain shoots all the way up my leg. I suck in air through my teeth and shake my head. "Not yet, it hurts." Ryle motions to Marshall.
"Find something to put the ice in."
Elisa follows Marshall out of the room. When they're both gone, Ryle looks at me and his mouth turns up into a grin.
"I won't charge you for this, but only because I'm slightly inebriated,"
he says with a wink. I tilt my head. "The first time I met you, you were high. Now you're drunk. I'm beginning to worry you aren't going to make a very qualified neurosurgeon." He laughs.
"It would appear that way,"
he says.
"But I promise you, I rarely ever get high, and this is my first day off in over a month, so I really needed a beer. Or 5.
Marshall comes back with an old rag wrapped around some ice. He hands it to Ryle, who presses it against my ankle.
"I'll need that first aid kit out of your trunk,"
Ryle says to Elisa. She nods and grabs Marshall's hand, pulling him out of the room again. Ryle presses his palm against the bottom of my foot.
"Push against my hand,"
he says. I push down with my ankle. It hurts, but I'm able to move his hand. "Is it broken?" He moves my foot from side to side and then says,
"I don't think so. Let's give it a couple of minutes and I'll see if you can put any weight on it."
I nod and watch as he adjusts himself across from me. He sits cross-legged and pulls my foot onto his lap. He looks around the room and then directs his attention back at me.
"So what is this place?"
I smile a little too big. "Lily blooms. It'll be a floral shop in about 2 months' time." I swear his whole face lights up with pride.
"No way,"
he says.
"You did it? You're actually opening up your own business?"
I nod. "Yep, I figured I might as well try it while I'm still young enough to bounce back from failure." One of his hands is holding the ice against my ankle, but the other one is wrapped around my bare foot. He's brushing his thumb back and forth like it's no big deal that he's touching me, but his hand on my foot is way more noticeable than the pain in my ankle.
I look ridiculous, huh?
He asks, staring down at his solid red onesie. I shrug. At least you went with a non-character choice. It gives it a bit more maturity than the SpongeBob option. He laughs, and then his smile disappears as he leans his head into the door beside him. He stares at me appreciatively.
You're even prettier in the daytime.
Moments like these are why I absolutely hate having red hair and fair skin. The embarrassment doesn't only show up in my cheeks, my whole face, arms, and neck grow flushed. I rest my head against the wall behind me and stare at him just like he's staring at me. You want to hear a naked truth? He nods. I've wanted to go back to your roof on more than one occasion since that night, but I was too scared you'd be there. You make me kind of nervous. His fingers pause their strokes against my foot.
My turn?
I nod. His eyes narrow as his hand moves to the underneath of my foot. He slowly traces his fingers from the tops of my toes down to my heel.
I still very much want to fuck you.
Someone gasps, and it isn't me. Ryle and I both look at the doorway, and Elisa is standing there wide-eyed. Her mouth is open as she points down at Ryle. Did you just... She looks at me and says, I am so sorry about him, Lily. And then she looks back at Ryle with venom in her eyes. Did you just tell my boss you want to fuck her? Oh, dear. Ryle pulls his bottom lip in and chews on it for a second. Marshall walks in behind Elisa and says,
What's going on?
Elisa looks at Marshall and points at Ryle again. He just told Lily he wants to fuck her. Marshall looks from Ryle to me. I don't know whether to laugh or crawl under the table and hide.
You did?
He says, looking back at Ryle. Ryle shrugs.
It appears that way,
he says. Elisa puts her head in her hands. Jesus Christ, she says, looking at me. He's drunk. They're both drunk. Please don't judge me because my brother is an asshole. I smile at her and wave it off. It's fine, Elisa. Lots of people want to fuck me. I glance back at Ryle and he's still casually stroking my foot. At least your brother speaks his mind. Not a lot of people have the courage to say what they're actually thinking. Ryle winks at me and then carefully moves my ankle off his lap.
Let's see if you can put any weight on it,
he says. He and Marshall help me to my feet. Ryle points to a table a few feet away that's pushed up against a wall.
Let's try to make it to the table so I can wrap it.
His arm is secured around my waist and he's gripping my arm tightly to make sure I don't fall. Marshall is more or less just standing next to me for support. I put a little weight on my ankle and it hurts, but it's not excruciating. I'm able to hop all the way to the table with a lot of assistance from Ryle. He helps me pull myself up until I'm seated on top of it, leaning against the wall with my legs stretched out in front of me.
Well, the good news is that it isn't broken.
What's the bad news? I ask him. He opens the first aid kit and says,
You'll need to stay off of it for a few days, maybe even a week or more, depending on how it heals.
I close my eyes and lean my head against the wall behind me. And I have so much to do, I whine. He carefully begins to wrap my ankle. Elisa is standing behind him, watching him wrap it.
I'm thirsty,
Marshall says.
Anybody want something to drink? There's a CVS across the street.
I'm good, Ryle says. I'll take a water, I say. Sprite, Elisa says. Marshall grabs her hand.
You're coming with.
Elisa pulls her hand from his and crosses her arms over her chest. I'm not going anywhere, she says. My brother can't be trusted. Elisa, it's fine, I tell her. He was making a joke. She stares at me silently for a moment and then says, Okay, but you can't fire me if he pulls more stupid shit. I promise I won't fire you." With that, she grabs Marshall's hand again and leaves the room. Ryle is still wrapping my foot when he says,
"My sister works for you?"
"Yep, hired her a couple of hours ago." He reaches into the first aid kit and pulls out tape.
"You do realize she's never had a job in her entire life?"
"She already warned me," I say. His jaw is tight, and he doesn't look as relaxed as he did earlier. Then it hits me that he might think I hired her as a way to get closer to him. "I had no idea she was your sister until you walked in, I swear." He glances at me and then back down at my foot.
"I wasn't suggesting you knew."
He begins to tape over the ace bandage. I knew you weren't. I just didn't want you to think I was trying to trap you somehow. We want two different things from life, remember?" He nods and carefully sets my foot back on the table.
"That is correct,"
he says.
"I specialize in one-night stands, and you're on the quest for your holy grail."
I laugh. "You have a good memory."
"I do,"
he says. A languid smile stretches across his mouth.
"But you're also hard to forget."
Jesus, he has to stop saying things like that. I press my palms into the table and pull my leg down. "Naked truth coming." He leans against the table next to me and says,
"All ears."
I hold nothing back. "I'm very attracted to you," I say. "There's not much about you I don't like, and being as though you and I both want different things, if we're ever around each other again, I'd appreciate it if you could stop saying things that make me dizzy. It's not really fair to me." He nods once and then says,
"My turn."
He places his hand on the table next to me and leans in a little.
"I'm very attracted to you, too. There's not much about you I don't like. But I kind of hope we're never around each other again because I don't like how much I think about you. Which isn't all that much, but it's more than I'd like. So if you still aren't going to agree to a one-night stand, then I think it's best if we do what we can to avoid each other. Because it won't do either of us any favors."
I don't know how he ended up this close to me, but he's only about a foot away. His proximity makes it hard to pay attention to words that come out of his mouth. His gaze drops briefly to my mouth, but as soon as we hear the front door open, he's halfway across the room. By the time Elisa and Marshall make it to us, Ryle is busy restacking all the crates that fell. Elisa looks down at my ankle. "What's the verdict?" she asks. I push my bottom lip out. "Your doctor brother says I have to stay off of it for a few days." She hands me my water. "Good thing you have me. I can work and do what I can to clean up while you rest." I take a drink of the water and then wipe my mouth. "Elisa, I'm declaring you Employee of the Month." She grins and then turns to Marshall. "Did you hear that? I'm the best employee she has." He puts his arm around her and kisses the top of her head.
"I'm proud of you, Isa."
I like that he calls her Isa, which I'm assuming is short for Elisa. I think about my own name and if I'll ever find a guy who could shorten it into a sickeningly cute nickname. Illy. Nope, not the same. "Do you need help getting home?" she asks. I hop down and test my foot. Maybe just to my car. It's my left foot, so I can probably drive just fine. She walks over and puts her arm around me. "If you want to leave the keys with me, I'll lock up and come back tomorrow and start cleaning." The three of them walk me to my car, but Ryle allows Elisa to do most of the work. He seems almost scared to touch me now for some reason. When I'm in the driver's seat, Elisa puts my purse and other things in the floorboard and sits in the passenger seat. She takes my phone out and begins programming her number into it. Ryle leans into the window.
"Make sure to keep ice on it as much as you can for the next few days. Baths help, too."
I nod. "Thanks for your help." Elisa leans over and says, "Ryle, maybe you should drive her home and take a cab back to the apartment just to be safe." Ryle looks down at me and then shakes his head.
I don't think that's a good idea, he says. She'll be fine. I've had a few beers, probably shouldn't be driving.
You could at least help her home, Elisa suggests. Ryle shakes his head and then pats the roof of the car as he turns and walks away. I'm still watching him when Elisa hands me back my phone and says, "Seriously? I'm really sorry about him. First he hits on you, then he's a selfish asshole." She climbs out of the car and closes the door, then leans through the window. "That's why he'll be single for the rest of his life." She points to my phone. "Text me when you get home, and call me if you need anything. I won't count favors as work time." "Thank you, Elisa." She smiles. "No, thank you. I haven't been this excited about my life since that Paolo Nutini concert I went to last year." She waves goodbye and walks toward where Marshall and Ryle are standing. They begin walking down the street, and I watch them in my rearview mirror. As they turn the corner, I see Ryle glance over his shoulder and look back in my direction. I close my eyes and exhale. The 2 times I've spent with Ryle were on days I'd probably rather forget. My father's funeral and spraining my ankle. But somehow, him being present made them feel like less of the disasters they were. I hate that he's Elisa's brother. I have a feeling this isn't the last time I'll be seeing him. Chapter 4. It takes me half an hour to make it from my car to my apartment. I called Lucy twice to see if she could help me, but she didn't answer her phone. When I make it inside my apartment, I'm a little irritated to see her lying on the couch with a phone to her ear. I slam our front door behind me, and she glances up. "What happened to you?" she asks. I use the wall for support as I hop toward the hallway. "Sprained my ankle." When I make it to my bedroom door, she yells, "Sorry I didn't answer the phone. I'm talking to Alex. I was gonna call you back." "It's fine," I holler back at her, and then slam my bedroom door shut. I go to the bathroom and find some old pain pills I had stuffed into a cabinet. I swallow 2 of them and then fall onto my bed and stare up at the ceiling. I can't believe I'll be stuck in this apartment for an entire week. I grab my phone and text my mother. "Sprained my ankle. I'm fine, but can I send you a list of things to grab for me at the store?" I drop my phone onto my bed, and for the first time since she moved here, I'm thankful my mother lives fairly close to me. It actually hasn't been that bad. I think I like her more now that my father has passed away. I know it's because I held a lot of resentment toward her for never leaving him. Even though a lot of that resentment has faded when it comes to my mother, I still have the same feelings when I think of my father. It can't be good, still holding on to so much bitterness toward my father. But damn it, he was awful. To my mother, to me, to Atlas. Atlas. I've been so busy with my mother's move and secretly searching for a new building between work hours, I haven't had time to finish reading the journals I started reading all those months ago. I hop pathetically to my closet, only tripping once. Luckily, I catch myself on my dresser. Once I have the journal in hand, I hop back to the bed and get comfortable. I have nothing better to do for the next week now that I can't work. I might as well commiserate over my past while I'm forced to commiserate in the present. Dear Ellen, you hosting the Oscars was the greatest thing to happen to TV last year. I don't think I ever told you that. The vacuuming skit made me piss my pants. Oh, and I recruited a new Ellen follower today in Atlas. Before you start judging me for allowing him inside my house again, let me explain how that came about. After I let him take a shower here yesterday, I didn't see him again last night. But this morning, he sat by me on the bus again. He seemed a little happier than the day before because he slid into the seat and actually smiled at me. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little weird seeing him in my dad's clothes. But the pants fit him a lot better than I thought they were going to. Guess what? He said. He leaned forward and unzipped his backpack. What? He pulled out a bag and handed it to me. I found these in the garage. I tried to clean them up for you because they were covered in old dirt, but I can't do much without water. I held the bag and stared at him suspiciously. It's the most I'd ever heard him say at once. I finally looked down at the bag and opened it. It looked like a bunch of old gardening tools. I saw you digging with that shovel the other day. I wasn't sure if you had any actual gardening tools, and no one was using these, so... Thank you, I said. I was kind of in shock. I used to have a trowel, but the plastic broke off the handle and it started giving me blisters. I asked my mother for gardening tools for my birthday last year, and when she bought me a full-size shovel and a hoe, I didn't have the heart to tell her it's not what I needed. Atlas cleared his throat, and then, in a much quieter voice, he said, I know it's not like a real gift. I didn't buy it or anything, but I wanted to give you something, for... He didn't finish his sentence, so I nodded and tied the bag back up. Do you think you can hold them for me until after school? I don't have any room in my backpack. He grabbed the bag from me and then brought his backpack up to his lap and put the bag inside of it. He wrapped his arms around his backpack. How old are you? He asked. 15. The look in his eyes made him seem a little bit sad about my age, but I don't know why. You're in 10th grade? I nodded, but honestly couldn't think of anything to say to him. I haven't really had much interaction with a lot of guys, especially seniors. When I'm nervous, I just kind of clam up. I don't know how long I'll be staying at that place, he said, bringing his voice down again. But if you ever need help with gardening or anything after school, it's not like I have much going on there, being as though I have no electricity. I laughed, and then wondered if I should have laughed at his self-deprecating comment. We spent the rest of the bus ride talking about you, Ellen. When he made that comment about being bored, I asked him if he ever watched your show. He said he'd like to because he thinks you're funny, but a TV would require electricity. Another comment I wasn't sure if I should have laughed at. I told him he could watch your show with me after school. I always record it on the DVR and watch it while I do my chores. I figured I could just keep the front door deadbolted, and if my parents got home early, I'd just have Atlas run out the back door. I didn't see him again until the ride home today. He didn't sit by me this time because Katie got on the bus before him and sat next to me. I wanted to ask her to move, but then she'd think I had a crush on Atlas. Katie would have a field day with that one, so I just let her stay in my seat. Atlas was at the front of the bus, so he got off before I did. He just kind of awkwardly stood there at the bus stop and waited for me to get off. When I did, he opened his backpack and handed me the bag of tools. He didn't say anything about my invitation to watch TV from earlier this morning, so I just acted like it was a given. Come on, I told him. He followed me inside and I locked the deadbolt. If my parents come home early, run out the back door and don't let them see you. He nodded. Don't worry, I will, he said with kind of a laugh. I asked him if he wanted anything to drink, and he said sure. I made us a snack and brought our drinks to the living room. I sat down on the couch and he sat down in my dad's chair. I turned on your show, and that's about all that happened. We didn't talk much because I fast-forwarded through all the commercials. But I did notice he laughed at all the right times. I think good comedic timing is one of the most important things about a person's personality. Every time he laughed at your jokes, it made me feel better about sneaking him into my house. I don't know why. Maybe because if he's actually someone I could be friends with, it'd make me feel less guilty. He left right after your show was over. I wanted to ask him if he needed to use our shower again, but that would have cut it real close to time for my parents getting home. The last thing I wanted was for him to have to run out of the shower and across my backyard naked. Then again, that'd be kind of hilarious and awesome. Lily. Dear Ellen, come on, woman. Reruns? A full week of reruns? I get that you need time off, but let me make a suggestion. Instead of recording one show a day, you should record 2. That way you'll get twice as much done in half the time and we'd never have to sit through reruns. I say we because I'm referring to Atlas and me. He's become my regular Ellen watching partner. I think he might love you as much as I do, but I'll never tell him I write to you on a daily basis. That might seem a little too fangirl. He's been living in that house for 2 weeks now. He's taken a few more showers at my house, and I give him food every time he visits. I even wash his clothes for him while he's here after school. He keeps apologizing to me like he's a burden, but honestly, I love it. He keeps my mind off things, and I actually look forward to spending time with him after school every day. Dad got home late last night, which means he went to the bar after work, which means he's probably going to instigate a fight with my mother, which means he'll probably do something stupid again. I swear, sometimes I get so mad at her for staying with him. I know I'm only 15 and probably don't understand all the reasons she chooses to stay, but I refuse to let her use me as her excuse. I don't care if she's too poor to leave him and we'd have to move into a crappy apartment and eat ramen noodles until I graduate. That would be better than this. I can hear him yelling at her right now. Sometimes when he gets like this, I walk into the living room hoping it'll calm him down. He doesn't like to hit her when I'm in the room. Maybe I should go try that. Lily. Dear Ellen, if I had access to a gun or knife right now, I'd kill him. As soon as I walked into the living room, I saw him push her down. They were standing in the kitchen and she'd grabbed his arm, trying to calm him down, and he backhanded her and knocked her straight to the floor. I'm pretty sure he was about to kick her, but he saw me walk into the living room and he stopped. He muttered something under his breath to her and then walked to their bedroom and slammed the door. I rushed to the kitchen and tried to help her, but she never wants me to see her like this. She waved me away and said, "I'm fine, Lily, I'm fine, we just got into a stupid fight." She was crying, and I could already see the redness on her cheek from where he hit her. When I walked closer to her, wanting to make sure she was okay, she turned her back to me and gripped the counter. I said, "I'm fine, Lily. Go back to your room." I ran back down the hallway, but I didn't go back to my room. I ran straight out the back door and across the backyard. I was so mad at her for being short with me. I didn't even want to be in the same house as either of them, and even though it was dark already, I went over to the house Atlas was staying in and I knocked on the door. I could hear him moving inside like he accidentally knocked something over. "It's me, Lily," I whispered. A few seconds later, the back door opened and he looked behind me, then to the left and right of me. It wasn't until he looked at my face that he saw I was crying. "You okay?" he asked, stepping outside. I used my shirt to wipe away my tears and noticed he came outside instead of inviting me in. I sat down on the porch step and he sat down next to me. "I'm fine," I said. "I'm just mad. Sometimes I cry when I get mad." He reached over and tucked my hair behind my ear. I liked it when he did that, and I suddenly wasn't nearly as mad anymore. Then he put his arm around me and pulled me to him so that my head was resting on his shoulder. I don't know how he calmed me down without even talking, but he did. Some people just have a calming presence about them, and he's one of those people. Completely opposite of my father. We sat like that for a while until I saw my bedroom light turn on. "You should go," he whispered. We could both see my mom standing in my bedroom looking for me. It wasn't until that moment that I realized what a perfect view he has of my bedroom. As I walked back home, I tried to think about the entire time Atlas has been in that house. I tried to recall if I'd walked around after dark with the light on at night, because all I normally wear in my room at night is a t-shirt. Here's what's crazy about that, Ellen. I was kind of hoping I had. Lily. I close the journal when the pain pills start to kick in. I'll read more tomorrow. Maybe. Reading about the things my dad used to do to my mom kind of puts me in a bad mood. Reading about Atlas kind of puts me in a sad mood. I try to fall asleep and think about Ryle, but the whole situation with him kind of makes me mad and sad. Maybe I'll just think about Elisa and how happy I am that she showed up today. I could use a friend, not to mention help, during these next few months. I have a feeling it's going to be more stressful than I bargained for. Chapter 5. Ryle was correct. It only took a few days for my ankle to feel good enough that I could walk on it again. I waited a full week before attempting to leave my apartment, though. The last thing I need is to re-injure it. Of course, the first place I went was to my floral shop. Elisa was there when I arrived today, and to say I was shocked when I walked through the front doors is an understatement. It looked like a totally different building than the one I bought. There's still a ton of work that needs to be done, but she and Marshall had gotten rid of all the stuff we marked as trash. Everything else had been organized into piles. The windows had been washed, the floors had been mopped. She even had the area where I planned to put an office cleaned out. I helped her for a few hours today, but she wouldn't let me do much that required walking at first, so I mostly drew out plans for the store. We picked out paint colors and set a goal date to open the store that's approximately 54 days from now. After she left, I spent the next few hours doing all the stuff she wouldn't let me do while she was there. It felt good to be back, but Jesus Christ, I'm tired. Which is why I'm debating on whether or not to get up from the couch and answer the knock at my front door. Lucy is at Alex's again tonight, and I just spoke to my mother 5 minutes ago on the phone, so I know it isn't either of them. I walk to the door and check the peephole before opening it. I don't recognize him at first because his head is down, but then he looks up and to the right and my heart freaks the hell out. What is he doing here? Ryle knocks again, and I try to brush my hair out of my face and smooth it down with my hands, but it's a lost cause. I worked my ass off today, and I look like shit. So unless I have half an hour to take a shower, put on makeup, and throw on clothes before I open the door, he'll pretty much have to deal with me as is. I open the door, and his immediate reaction confuses me.
Jesus Christ,
he says, dropping his head against my doorframe. He's panting like he's been working out, and that's when I notice that he doesn't look to be any more rusted or clean than I am. He's got a couple days' worth of stubble on his face, something I've never seen on him before, and his hair isn't styled like it usually is. It's a little erratic, like the look in his eye.
Do you have any idea how many doors I've knocked on to find you?
I shake my head because I don't. But now that he mentions it, how in the hell does he know where I live?
29,
he says. Then he holds up his hands and repeats the numbers with his fingers while he whispers, 29. I let my gaze drop down to his clothes. He's in scrubs, and I absolutely hate that he's in scrubs right now. Holy hell. So much better than the onesie and way better than the Burberry. Why did you knock on 29 doors? I ask with a tilt of my head.
You never told me which apartment was yours,
he says matter-of-factly.
You said you lived in this building, but I couldn't remember if you even said which floor. And for the record, I almost started with the 3rd floor. I would have been here an hour ago if I went with my gut instinct.
Why are you here? He runs his hands down his face and then points over my shoulder.
Can I come in?
I glance over my shoulder and then open the door farther. I guess, if you tell me what you want. He walks inside and I close the door behind us. He glances around, wearing his stupid hot scrubs, and puts his hands on his hips as he faces me. He looks a little disappointed, but I'm not sure if it's in me or himself.
There's a really big naked truth coming, okay?
He says.
Brace yourself.
I fold my arms over my chest and watch as he inhales a breath, preparing to speak.
These next couple of months are the most important months in my entire career. I have to be focused. I'm closing in on the end of my residency, and then I'll have to sit for my exams.
He's pacing my living room, talking frantically with his hands.
But for the past week, I haven't been able to get you out of my head. I don't know why. At work, at home. All I can think about is how crazy it feels when I'm near you, and I need you to make it stop, Lily.
He stops pacing and faces me.
Please, make it stop, just once. That's all it'll take, I swear.
My fingers are digging into the skin of my arms as I watch him. He's still panting a little, and his eyes are still frantic, but he's looking at me pleadingly. "When is the last time you've had sleep?" I ask him. He rolls his eyes like he's frustrated that I'm not getting it.
"I just got off a 48-hour shift," he says dismissively. "Focus, Lily."
I nod and replay his words in my head. If I didn't know better, I'd almost think he was... I inhale a calming breath. "Ryle," I say carefully, "did you seriously just knock on 29 doors so you could tell me that the thought of me is making your life hell and I should have sex with you so that you'll never have to think of me again? Are you kidding me right now?" He folds his lips together and, after about 5 seconds of thought, he slowly nods his head.
"Well, yeah, but it sounds way worse when you say it."
I release an exasperated laugh. "That's because it's ridiculous, Ryle." He bites his bottom lip and looks around the room like he suddenly wants to escape. I open the door and motion for him to walk out. He doesn't. His eyes fall to my foot.
"Your ankle looks good," he says. "How does it feel?"
I roll my eyes. "Better. I was able to help Elisa at the store for the first time today." He nods and then makes like he's walking toward the door to leave. But as soon as he reaches me, he spins toward me and slaps his palms against the door on either side of my head. I gasp at both his proximity and his persistence.
"Please,"
he says. I shake my head, even though my body is starting to trade sides and beg my mind to cave to him.
"I'm really good at it, Lily," he says with a grin. "You'll barely even have to do any work."
I try not to laugh, but his determination is as endearing as it is annoying. "Good night, Ryle." His head drops between his shoulders, and he shakes it back and forth. He pushes off the door and stands up straight. He half turns, heading for the hallway, but then suddenly drops to his knees in front of me. He wraps his arms around my waist.
"Please, Lily," he says through self-deprecating laughter. "Please have sex with me."
He's looking up at me with puppy dog eyes and a pathetic, hopeful grin.
"I want you so bad, and I swear, once you have sex with me, you'll never hear from me again. I promise."
There's something about a neurosurgeon literally on his knees begging for sex that does me in. That's pretty pathetic. "Get up," I say, pushing his arms away from me. "You're embarrassing yourself." He slowly stands up, dragging his hands up the door on either side of me until he has me caged in between his arms.
"Is that a yes?"
His chest is barely touching mine, and I hate how good it feels to be wanted this much. I should be turned off by it, but I can hardly breathe when I look at him, especially when he has this suggestive smile on his face. "I don't feel sexy right now, Ryle. I worked all day, I'm exhausted, I smell like sweat and probably taste like dust. If you give me a little while to shower first, I might feel sexy enough to have sex with you." He's nodding feverishly before I'm even finished speaking.
"Shower. Take all the time you need. I'll wait."
I push him away from me and close the front door. He follows me to the bedroom, and I tell him to wait on the bed for me. Luckily, I cleaned my bedroom last night. Normally, I have clothes lying around everywhere, books piled up on my nightstand, shoes and bras that don't quite make it to my closet. But tonight, it's clean. My bed is even made up, complete with the ugly quilted throw pillows my grandmother passed down to every person in our family. I make a quick glance around the room, just to make sure nothing embarrassing will catch his eye. He takes a seat on my bed, and I watch as he scans the room. I stand in the doorway to my bathroom and try to give him one last out. "You say this will make it stop, but I'm warning you right now, Ryle. I'm like a drug. If you have sex with me tonight, it's only going to make things worse for you. But once is all you're getting. I refuse to become one of the many girls you used to..." How did you word it that night? Satisfy your needs? He leans back on his elbows.
You aren't that kind of girl, Lily. And I'm not the kind of guy who needs someone more than once. We have nothing to worry about.
I close the door behind me, wondering how in the hell this guy talked me into this. It's the scrubs. The scrubs are my weakness. It has nothing to do with him. I wonder if there's a way he could leave them on during the sex.